Hiya, and welcome back to Password. The game that teaches us that Yellow Durg is holding a shovel. I cannot think of anything, and no, I didn't turn down the cooldown. I keep forgetting to. I keep forgetting to turn it down. Anyways, let's just hop right in. This is our current save. Set a reminder. Nah, I can probably remember. Maybe not, I don't know yet. I slowly opened my eyes, my head throbbing gently with a vague feeling of pain, or maybe not pain, but as if the inside of my skull had been itchy and I'd just given it a good scratch. For the most part, my throat felt dry and I needed water, then coffee, then breakfast. Just thinking about food made my stomach growl. Something that I wasn't expecting, but it was nice having an appetite again. Though the sleep was hard to properly shake off from how warm I was. While the towel had done wonders, my fur still felt matted in places, but the thought as to why brought a tired smile to my face. The fact I was still naked and half lounging on my boyfriend reinforced everything, and I found myself further riled up. The thought of yet another repeat before breakfast lost out to the prospect of breakfast, however, and I crawled out of bed and took a shower. There he is. Sorry, did I wake you? Probably. All I knew when I came to was that you weren't in bed with me and the shower was running. No. I graduated, like, a little over 2 years ago. And the shower was running. But wait, you've started getting dressed? As much as I'd like to spend all day without clothes, we can't get room service. Plus the other will come looking at some point anyway. But you're just going to get dressed instead of showering? Yes. But you still got some in your mane. I do? He started running his claws through his mane, stopping suddenly, looking bashful. Oh god, alright, shower is needed. Should I meet you downstairs? Yeah, I might be a while given there's a lot of mane to double check. He scurried off soon after, shooting me one last smile before disappearing into the bathroom and leaving me the space to get ready for the day. Once I was dressed, I headed downstairs. The house was quiet, although that was likely due to me being one of the first people, if not the first. When I got to the kitchen, it was cold and untouched, which just meant I had the pleasure of turning on the coffee machine and getting breakfast started. Looking in the pantry and the fridge, though, I started to wonder just how long what food we had was going to last. Those of us in the mansion, 3 meals a day at best for another week at least. I frowned, thinking about how we'd start to ration things. The freezer still had a good stockpile, but I was going to miss having milk in my coffee if they didn't have powdered stuff. But even that wasn't the same. Pacing the kitchen, my mind went back to my dream, trying to piece it together. Where he does his best work. Part of me was expecting Thanatos to show up, and I scanned the kitchen for him, but nothing. Breakfast is ready. I'd burst into the dining room just as everyone seemed to have settled into their seats. That said, what I'd made for breakfast paled in comparison to the last big breakfast I'd made. What's for breakfast? Looks like toast. Did you struggle? If you needed help, you could have just said so. I'd have been happy to help. No, I'm just being, mindful about how much food we have left. The comment made everyone look at the toast and then back to me quickly. I felt a little nervous about how people were going to react, but no one said anything about it. Well, what's everyone's plans for today? No plans on my end.
All things considered, no plans are good plans, right?
What makes you say that?
Well, after yesterday, I imagine people won't necessarily want to do anything, right?
Well, we can't just do nothing. Any ideas, then? If we're running low on food, I can't say we can readily make something in the kitchen as a group. It's something I should probably check, too, and then we can have a plan to properly ration things out if needed.
I don't think things are that dire just yet, but it's worth checking.
Foraging is likely out, too, given how dangerous the woods are now. Speaking of danger, do we know what we're going to be doing about that? Thanatos said we have a couple days of breathing room. I nodded slowly, thinking back to the past few days. A break was nice, and even if he was lying, there was a chance what he said was the truth. He did? That's a relief. Although I don't think it's wise to go letting our guard completely down, just in case. I agree, but what do we do?
Shy of keeping watch and arming ourselves just in case, there isn't much alternative, is there?
It's not as if we can go get guns either.
Why not?
Benson has them locked away in his room, behind another locked door. Apparently the keys are safe.
Did he say where the keys were just in case?
Just that they were safe.
Well, that's not an answer.
You think is all, Sam? Or maybe he doesn't want anyone to know where they are, just in case they want to do something bad with them. Oh, Sam, Amethyst. I also graduated high school in 2021. I hated my graduating class, well, for the most part. Just in case they want to do something bad with them. That's a little dangerous, isn't it? In case we need them. It'd be more dangerous to arm someone that doesn't know how to use a gun properly. I looked across to Orlando with a frown. For a moment, Benson's face flashed in my mind after the investigation yesterday. But something about that event made me worry about Orlando. I just couldn't place why.
I guess that's true. What weapons does that leave us should we need them, though?
My graduation... You know what? Theta story time. I know, I do a Theta story time multiple times every stream, but this time, actual set in stone, Theta story time. Let me just... I'm doing a bit. Let me just... Gather round, children! Gather round! Alright. So, here's what happened. I'm taking these off. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to keep them on. Cuts down on streaks. Yeah, no. Okay, so. Here's what happened. My mom got upset with me for a tiny bit when I graduated. The reason why was because she wanted me to turn in some, some photos for the senior slideshow. I don't know if you all had a senior slideshow, but I had one. My class had one. My school does that. And, I turned the photos in, but they didn't add them in, and my mom thought that I just didn't turn them in. I'm like, no, I did turn them in, they just didn't put them in. And she's like, oh, okay. That said, it was weird. Graduation was weird. Felt like I closed a door in my life. I don't really like that. Oh, no. I still know where my robe... Like, my robe, all my documents. Yeah.
I guess that's true. What weapons does that leave us should we need them, though?
Oh, wait. Hang on. Here we go. I'm gonna see if I can get that sword from the suit of armor upstairs. It's only bolted in place, so a wrench of some sort should get it free. A sword? Really? Better than nothing.
I'd agree. Otherwise, we only have things from the kitten.
We also have the axe in the greenhouse. Although I figure I'll take that up should we need to. There was an outside graduation. Mine was also an outside graduation. However, we had to show up to... I don't know about you all, but with my high school graduation was strict. Like, it was so strict that I wasn't even sure it was worth it. Because, like, we had to show up for practice, which, like, I guess that's already there. If you don't show up to practice, then you don't get to walk. Which I can kind of understand. But, like... But it was also like, if you didn't show up on time, you would not be allowed to walk. If you didn't follow all these strict procedures, you were not allowed to walk. And I'm just sitting there listening to that thinking, what the fuck? We also have the axe in the greenhouse, although I figured I'll take that up should we need to. Why do you get the axe? Who'll have the sword then?
Given his size, I imagine Sal is the one that could handle it. That or Shovel, maybe.
What's anyone going to do with a shovel? Dig something up maybe, or bury something, or a makeshift crowbar? Glancing at Tyson showed he had some level of pride and threw me a subtle thumbs up. I wasn't sure if I should be happy about that or not, but the conversation moved on regardless. Somehow I don't think that's going to come up, Dave. So we've got checking the kitchen for our food supply, and gathering weapons should we need them. That's what we're doing today. Someone will need to see if Benson can help us out as well. Not to mention find Thanatos unless someone has seen either of them this morning. When I came downstairs, wasn't anyone here. First people I saw was everyone when you all arrived. We all kind of reached the stairs at the same time, so unless either of them paid someone a visit. No one spoke up, sharing confused and questioning glances before resigning the fact no one had seen either of them. Alright, shall we split up into groups then? How about Sal, myself, and Tyson handle getting ourselves sorted as far as weapons and other supplies while the others handle the food? Wasn't Dean going to get the sword? Anyone can use a wrench to undo a bolt, plus if forging absolutely needs to be considered, it's better for the person that knows how to do that be present, right? I guess that's fair.
I think you're forgetting about Dave in there, boss. Hoss.
Didn't forget. I figured he'll do as he normally does and flip between the groups. Dave, are you fine with that? I guess so. I can always keep an eye out for Thanatos in the meantime, too.
Perfect. Dean, Orlando, to the kitchen.
Roswell gathered up a few of the dishes from breakfast and wandered into the kitchen. The other two followed suit and flashed me a smile on their way out. Come on, big dog, we have supplies to get. The others left in the same way, leaving me behind in the dining room. Normally I would have felt strange being left out like this, but my mind was attached to seeking answers from a certain rat. Thanatos, are you around? Calling out for him seemed like the safest place to start. His habit of just being around made it seem like I could just call and he'd be there, though that was hardly working. Are you down here? It hadn't occurred to me just how difficult he might be to find, given that he could just as easily avoid being found. That left me in the lurch. I found myself standing in front of the vault door. That was all the rat was, a computer attached to a room holding a screen. With a frown, I inspected the input panel. There was a word that existed that opened the door, but part of me deep down said that I'd never know what the word would be. Something about the panel drew my attention and I leaned in a bit closer. First I thought I'd seen something, but it was something I'd heard instead. How strict was it? If you didn't follow all these very specific conditions, then you wouldn't be allowed to walk. First I thought I'd seen something, but it was something I'd heard instead, almost like the churning of heavy metal combined with the sound of a clock ticking. I didn't think Bomb and more felt that it was closer to breathing, that this sound was the mechanical version of whatever was beating in my chest. Thanatos, can you hear me? There was nothing that came as a reply, but I continued speaking anyway. If he could see everything that happened in front of the store, there was no doubt in my mind that if not now, but sometime he'd come and pay a visit. I had a dream last night, but it wasn't... What I meant to say is, you didn't make me remember anything, right? That wasn't you? Again, the silence stretched out, making me fidget. How traumatic can an event be for me to remember it? Hiya. Oh, no. We had to wear formal dress, and we had to have a tassel cap and gown. We had to have all that. If you didn't either buy one or rent one, you weren't allowed to walk. The school wouldn't provide one. How can I tell the difference between what's a dream and what's a memory? A dry laugh found its way out of my mouth and I shook my head. Are there even any more passwords for me to find, for me to remember?
That depends.
I immediately turned on my heel and looked back towards the door. Standing just out of view was Thanatos, his beady red eyes glowing softly in the dark. Depends on what?
You mostly.
I'd rather there be no more passwords if I had my say.
Why?
Because that means that nothing bad happened and I didn't have to step in and prevent it.
Or the opposite, that this is just the first time around this set of variables and it's your job to survive long enough for a password to be made.
Oh shit. Only you'd know that, right?
Yes and no. There's always a third option.
Being?
Whatever you experienced last night, I didn't cause. Maybe I'm rubbing off on you.
Don't go telling Roswell. He might get jealous I'm developing psychic powers. He seemed to regard the statement carefully for a few moments, measuring his words. Yeah, the sash. And I'm taking these glasses off. Because, like, they are bugging me to no end. Like, I cannot comfortably wear my headphones with them on. I'm gonna put them on after stream, though. Carefully for a few moments, measuring his words.
Yeah, I bet he would get jealous.
Is there a way to tell the difference between what's a dream and what's a memory?
Not really.
Not at all?
Well, with how consistent you are, not that I know of anyway, what makes you think what you saw was a memory?
It was strange. It was like I was there, but I wasn't. Like I was looking through the eyes of the me that,
Yeah, real easy to follow.
Sorry, it was almost like an out-of-body experience, but in-body experience instead?
Listen, I had nothing to do with whatever it was you saw. Could be a dream, could be a memory, but whatever it was, I don't have a clue as to what you're talking about.
I frowned, thinking back to the dream. We were outside, and, you had just given me a vision, I think?
That ain't narrowing it down.
And there was talk about Jack, a plan or something.
I think you're better off asking yourself if that was sufficiently traumatic to even be a thing to recall.
You have a point.
Think about it this way. You can't remember anything unless you've been traumatized by the event.
He backed up a little, half shrouding himself in the darkness of the basement.
So tell me, Dave, that line up to your dream?
Well, not really.
Then you just had a dream. Nothing else.
You're sure?
I'm sure.
You don't sound it.
Look, if you want to fight about it, then give me something to work with. I have other things I need to be doing now anyway.
Such as, what's more important than helping me figure this out?
Making sure Benson behaves himself.
And what does that mean?
I need to make sure that he doesn't go playing with guns today, that's all.
Are we in danger?
When aren't you? You were in danger the moment you showed up on the mountain. Well, maybe not you, but I'll count it anyway.
Thanatos disappeared into the darkness, and before I could cross the distance of the room to the door, he was gone for good. I wandered back upstairs and looked around the foyer. No sign of Benson yet, but with Thanatos tracking him down, I guess I didn't have to worry. Thinking back to what Haas said, I was due to float between the groups, and now seemed like a good time as any to check in. Which group are we checking in with? God damn, this tastes like happiness. To the boyfriend group! As I entered the kitchen, the others were already thoroughly assessing what was available as far as food. But the attitude in the room seemed to show that things might not be so great with the food after all. We can make this work, but if things go longer than a week with how many of us there are... That bad, huh? It's not looking good, at least as far as the refrigerator goes.
Plenty of sun-dries still. Rice, flour, plenty of things that we could stretch out potentially, but even that's finite.
Part of me is thankful that we carved the pumpkin when we did. Still a lot of that left in the freezer to work through. Which is good, right? If it comes down to it, we can't afford to be picky.
Depending on when the road issue gets addressed, even beyond working with whatever may come at us from the woods, we might have to last a couple weeks yet.
Which isn't good. I said that, right? You did, yeah. Especially when, Eyes went to Roswell and he just shrugged.
If it happens, it happens. There's no point worrying about it and planning around one less person.
Right, we have to assume that we can still feed everyone here, right?
Well, not exactly what I was getting at, but yes.
Then what are you getting at? That there'd be left?
It's a possibility, a grim one, but one that might make the food stretch longer.
That's, well, so long as we don't start deciding who to kill off, we're fine, right? We're all still friends?
Of course we are, Dave. It's not as if, well, I suppose the talk yesterday has kind of muddied that a little, huh?
You're going to take the wrath word that one of us is the traitor? I thought he said that no one was. Dean, for someone that's dating a Tanuki, you sure can't piece two and two together. I'm sorry?
He means that Thanatos really meant that it was one of us. He was taunting us in our assuredness that none of us were guilty.
Which one is it, though?
If anyone would know, it'd be him, but something tells me he's going to be less generous in telling us who to point the finger at.
What something is that, Rothwell, that he openly admitted to trying to kill one of us, or that he's a walking, talking rat? Robot? Like that makes any difference. It might make a little, like, I don't know. He's not telling us everything for sure, but he's also been questionably fair. The moment the words left my mouth, I doubted them. A sentiment shared by everyone except Roswell.
In a sense, that's true. If he was truly malicious, then he wouldn't have allowed you to put in passwords, right?
But the trade-off is that if Dave didn't step in, then one or more of us could be dead. And it'd be his fault.
Take Tyson, for example. Who knows what would be different if you hadn't stepped in, Dave?
I'd rather not think about it.
Right, but the fact that he allowed you to intervene rather than carrying out the deed anyway...
He shrugged, shaking his head.
Whatever his motives are, they're beyond me.
They sound complicated. Complicated is one way of putting it. That doesn't help us figure out if we can or can't trust him, does it? I wouldn't, but if it's a choice between someone who's proven to help keep people alive even if it requires a special word, it's better than the alternative, that's for sure. On things we can control, though, we might not need to worry about foraging, but if it comes to that, I have it covered. But what about how dangerous the woods are? Hey, I can handle myself in the woods. If it makes it feel any better, I won't go out there unless I've got the axe or a gun if we can find one. Even then, only as a last resort, alright? I breathed a sigh of relief, feeling that whatever fallout Dean and I had seemed to be over. Or over enough that he seemed to not be showing any more signs of grief over it.
As far as it being an option, it's good to know that we have one should the food run low.
Absolutely. We're a long ways off that, but it's nice to know it's there. So, if food is handled, what now?
I guess meal planning? Well, we have the food. It's probably a good idea to figure out how to use what we have efficiently, right?
Probably a good idea. Seems like we have a fair bit, but it might turn out to be more than we realize once we've planned actual meals. Anyway, I can help with that at all.
If Orlando can plan the meals, we can act as runners around the kitchen to call out what we do and do not have.
Which means I'm not needed. You're welcome to stay if you want, but between the three of us, we should have it. Alright, probably not a bad time to check in with the others anyway. See how they're going with that sword or whatever, right? Feel free to let them know we have the food situation under control. If it's one less thing to worry about, better that they know sooner rather than later, right? With a nod, I left the three of them to sort out the food properly and made my way upstairs to the museum. When I got to the museum, all three of them seemed to be standing in front of the suit of armor. No progress seemed to have been made. Guys? Oh, hey Dave. I'm guessing getting the sword out isn't going well. And splitting up the groups up like this, I didn't think the actual need for a wrench was going to get in the way. I thought the fact that it was bolted down was pretty indicative that it wasn't meant to be moved. But if it was only bolted down and not welded down, we can remove it, right? Not without a wrench. So, what have you been doing this whole time then, rather than getting a tool from downstairs? Just talking. About nothing important, really. Hoss and I were talking about family, or trying to. But Tyson kept chiming in about his brother. Was not.
Yeah.
Hoss, what was the last thing Tyson said about Dave? Hoss. Tyson. Sal. Dave. Anyway. So he said you're pretty dumb sometimes, but he loved you anyway, Dave. Dude! I guess I love you too, Ty? Thanks. The girlies! Ah! You two are very strange, but I suppose that's just what brothers are like. Grimacing slightly, I looked at the sword we were all standing around, thinking it was about time we got back to getting this free. So, if we don't have a tool to get this out, what should we do? Go and get one, maybe? Admittedly, I'm happy to just linger for the time being. I agree. But, weapons. Getting the sword out will get us nowhere anyway. Sal could use it, Dean maybe, but it's not even sharp. Plus, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. What is a sword if not just a bigger knife? So, we need guns. Lots of guns. So we're going to be solving this the American way. We're going to be fighting for survival the American way. The American way. Guns. We really don't. Besides, the bare minimum is going to do us fine. The sword is mightier than the guns until the Americans pulled up.
Hey, 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 hey.
I would make a joke, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to make a joke. Besides, the minimum is going to do us fine. I don't think most of us have even fired a gun before. There is every chance that we'd be doing more damage to ourselves than those we might protect ourselves against. I can say with certainty, I have shot a gun before. As a child, I was pretty girly. And I'm pretty sure my grandfather picked up on that. And this is also going to be like a Greg reference. But like, I think my grandfather had me shoot guns to make me more manly. And make me less gay. However, now I am very gay, and I know how to shoot a gun, so all's well that ends well. I did shoot a gun before, and it was I've actually shot multiple guns. There was like a handheld BB gun, although I don't really count that. There's also the shotgun that my grandfather had me shoot. Can we find a shotgun? I don't think most of us even... Yeah, I already read that. But is it better to have one than not in this case? I'd say it's better to not be in a position where we need to weigh that up. Long past the chance for that. I'm afraid I agree, but a knife isn't going to do much better, huh? Not if you're going to wait for them to come to us. It's not like any one of us is planning on heading out to see them first, right? I'm not too sure about that, really. What makes you say that? Orlando's father, mostly. Meaning, I can foresee a problematic situation where Orlando may try and bargain for our lives and get himself in trouble. Plus, doing so before they make it here would give him the largest buffer lest someone gets in the way. You think he'd really do that? Isn't he a bit of a wimp for that? Hey, everyone's scared sometimes, Tyson. Just depends on what and when. And Memphis is absolutely the kind of person that will latch onto whatever it is that gets you to cower. What does Memphis fear? That I do not know. Must be something pretty messed up. Could be anything. Maybe he's afraid of rats for all we know. So we just sick Thanatos at him. Would we be so lucky that it's something easy? I doubt it though. Maybe he doesn't like anime. Listen, he's evil already. Not liking anime is just a given. But isn't his family from, Japan? Isn't that racist? Being Japanese isn't racist. Not liking anime is... Please don't say racist. He probably likes anime. It's just a good bet that people do, right? I think Haas has tainted your mind on how many people like anime versus those that don't. Sal, even you like anime. Big, strong guy like you that lifts weight and has a deep voice isn't what most people would imagine when liking anime. Who do they imagine? Haas. Mostly Haas. Hiya. Pretty much. I believe Dave meant it another way. Oh, yeah? Yeah, it's... It's cringe. Very cringe. Rude. He's right, though. Dude, you're almost as bad. Oh. Hiya, Pack. Am not. Sal, how bad is he? I don't think I know for certain, but I know it's a slippery slope from what I've heard from Orlando. Remind me to watch myself around Orlando more from now on. Either way, I don't think we can bank on Memphis fearing anime enough that it's enough of a defense mechanism. Which means we need something a bit more reliable. Yeah, well, unless you've got an arsenal somewhere you haven't told us about, we still have to find something. I'm sure we will. Worst case scenario, we can just grab a tool to get the sword free and achieve the bare minimum we set out to do. Guessing you don't need me here for that? Do you have somewhere you need to be? I've already checked in with the others, so I figure now's a good enough time as any to see if I can find Benson. Speaking of, they have the food situation under control for what it's worth. He hasn't shown up yet. That's a surprise. I would have thought we'd have seen him by now. At least with how present he's been lately. Need me to relay a message, or we'll be fine, I think. Though if we struggle, we'll call out. Benson? None of the others seem to have seen him so far, and with him missing at breakfast too, it was strange that he hadn't made himself known. My mind immediately went to the worst, fearing that he'd been an unsuspecting victim while the rest of us have been distracted. The only thing stopping me from going into a full-blown panic attack was what Thanatos had said earlier. He'd know for certain if Benson had been done in, and I assumed that he'd have said something. Taking a load off by sitting on the stairs, I looked around the foyer, wondering where I should be looking. For a brief moment, I wondered if I should head back to one of the other groups and help them rather than sit and do nothing. That's when I heard it. Echoing through the foyer, the distinct sound of knocking coming from the front door. My first stood on end and I wasn't sure how to think at first. Knocking could only mean one thing, but should I answer the door? The knocking happened again, and this time it was more insistent. Even so that I stood and took a couple of steps closer to the door. If it was Benson, he'd just walk in. Same with Oswin or any of the others. Who's there? No one had spoken, I drew back, feeling like I shouldn't have asked. Open up, need to talk about something.
Open it!
I almost jumped as Thanatos seemed to come out of nowhere, standing next to me. Thanatos usually scrambled up my leg and perched on my shoulder. Who is it?
It's safe, open it!
Before I could question him on it, the knocking happened again, although it was closer to slamming rather than anything polite. I could hear the others starting to approach the foyer, but with Thanatos whipping the back of my neck with his tail, I opened the door. Hi, bitch! Hi, bitch! I was greeted to a meaty hand pointed in front of my face, though dropped limply after noticing the door had opened. Hello? You're not a Hammond. He looked down at me. The slight tilt in his head and narrowing of his eyes made me wonder what he was thinking. Or I could even try and stop him, he pushed his way inside. As he looked around the place, I looked at Thanatos, but there was nothing in how he reacted that implied that something was wrong as much as the feeling in my gut told me I was in danger. You're after a Hammond? Yeah. Need to talk to them about something. Go get one, will you? I believe I'll suffice for that. Benson, much like Thanatos, seemed to have popped out of nowhere and seemed stiff in how he stood in the doorway of one of the side rooms. He made his way over, and once the large bear turned his attention away from me, I took a few steps back. You're not a Hammond either, but I remember you. May I ask what you're doing here? Came to talk. About? Wanted to cut a deal. The others all filed in at this point, 3 stopping midway down the stairs, the others in the doorway leading to the dining room. Bear looked at everyone in turn, seemingly linger on Roswell before he noticed someone on the stairs. Hoss, that you? Dumb? Well, ain't you a sight for sore eyes? How have you been? Been better. Hoss seemed to know him, and more importantly was relaxed around him, but why? As he stepped forward, I noticed the gun tucked into the back of his pants, and I looked once more to Thanatos, who just shook his head. Benson seemed to notice too, but only tensed further. No shit! Before we get too distracted, Dominic, was it? Just Dom is fine. The foyer is hardly a comfortable place to be having a lengthy discussion. Shall we move to the dining room? Sure, that's fine. Wait! All eyes were on me, and I slowly raised a hand to point out the gun Dom had tucked away. Gun! What about it? May I ask why you came armed? Don't see what the big deal is, given you've got a piece on you right now. Surely there's good reason given why we have a sudden, unexpected visitor while the road off the mountain is currently missing. Got me there. Alright. Well, what? You're not taking my gun. Why do you have one, though? In case things got ugly. Lucky for you, I'm just here to talk. This time. Dom led the way to the dining room with Dean, Roswell, and Orlando backing off to let him pass. He pulled out a chair and dropped into it, stretching and leaning back while the rest of us tried to figure out what to do. So, you came to talk. With a Hammond, yeah. Any Hammond? Benson's question was answered with a shrug, and he rubbed the bridge of his nose. As professional as he seemed, I could still see the tiredness in his face. My mind immediately thought to Thanatos, saying he was going to stop Benson playing with guns, but he had one on him. Looking over to Haas, I noticed he was keeping his distance, lingering closer to Sal. The others all seemed to be on edge as well, no one really knowing what to say or do. As long as it's one that can answer my questions, I don't care. I'm missing a beat. He looked over at Haas, raising an eyebrow. Guns still have you spooked, Haas? Can't say I'm thrilled, no. Ah, well, not much we can do about that now, can we? Not these days, anyway. Indeed. Dangerous times we find ourselves in. Ain't that the truth? There was another lull in the conversation, with Dom sighing upon realizing that his request for a Hammond hadn't been fulfilled. No Hammond around, or we're just not going to find one for me. I could see Benson tense up and look towards me. If I didn't know better, I'd have thought that he wasn't sure of what to do. This because of Jack? The mention of his name made my first stand on end, and I felt a chill crawl along my spine. You know about that? How? Easy. Jack and I. He looked around the room lazily, briefly digging a finger into his ear before turning back to Haas. We're work buddies. My heart sank when Orlando went to speak up, but was cut off by Benson. If that wasn't blatant confirmation, I don't know what is. Of what? How twisted this deal you're likely to propose is. To that end, I shall not be fetching the master of the house or any Hammond for you. I half expected a threat to be made, but Dom just shrugged. Fair enough. That's it? You're just going to let that go? I came to talk, not shoot up the place. The boss is going to do that anyway. When? Depends mostly what comes of this talk. Benson looked uneasy again, and the rest of my friends looked a mix between scared and wary. Thanatos, by comparison, seemed like he was having a great time, even sliding off my shoulder to stand on the table. And this deal was, not without talking to a Hammond. But that's not another word, Dave. Let the kids speak. Only way we're getting through this talk is if we're open and honest with one another. I shot Benson an apologetic look before turning back to Dom. Getting you a Hammond might be hard given, there isn't one here anymore. What? It's as Dave says. I'm likely your best bet for any questions you may wish answered in light of recent events.
What questions did you even have?
He looked from Benson to Roswell, back to Benson, then settling on Roswell. That thing downstairs exists, right? The thing the boss calls a time machine? There is a thing down there, but it's no time machine. And you know the boss is on the mountain now, right? The assumption had been made, but it's nice to have clarification on that matter. I'll level with you. He's going to come looking for it and is going to take it. He wants it, whether he's allowed to have it or not. I believe he was told that he can't have it. You and I both know that's not going to matter one way or another. I'm telling you, he's going to come and take it.
This is sounding less like a deal and more like, I don't know, a threat?
Look, I'm not fussed about getting my hands dirty. I'd rather just the easier job and have you out of the way. The audacity you've shown by showing up alone is remarkable, even so far as to stipulate this deal without offering us anything in kind.
What exactly is the deal you had in mind? What do we get out of just handing over the thing in the basement?
Your lives, for starters. Like I said, the boss doesn't mind if things get dirty, but if we don't have to clean up bodies, it's just easier. So it's a trade between maybe dying and probably dying. I have to admit, I'm loath to believe someone of Memphis's morals to uphold any deal we strike, especially when it turns out what he's looking for doesn't exist. So no deal? Once Memphis finds out that it isn't what he wants, I imagine he's going to try seeking out someone to make what he wants happen.
And the person who would best be able to do that is, well, dead.
You can't be serious. It's true, so we can't really help. Shit. He leaned forward and ran his claws over the fur on his face, trying to think it out.
Given you're here now, does that mean we have some time until he comes knocking?
It was going to be tomorrow if I returned with bad news. Could maybe push it back a day or two longer. Not as if we're hurting for supplies out in the woods.
A couple extra days aren't going to matter if it's going to end up in murder anyway. Especially now knowing that he's going to potentially hunt us regardless.
We don't have to call in a favor. It works out better for us. Not as if it's the first time the boss had bribed the courts. As much as I'd like to entertain this deal, you haven't offered us anything substantial for us to make things easy for you. Our route off the mountain is, regrettably, not an option. Oh yeah, Jack's fault for the road. Not the way we got here, but getting out could still be on the cards. There's another way back home?
Where?
Now. You're not going to let that slip unless we come to an agreement. Plus, that option might not be so great depending on what the boss says. How bad is it? I imagine the problem comes of Memphis then knowing where we escaped to and setting up a trap.
So we're back to potentially being in danger versus probably being in danger.
It appears so. Best I can say is ask the boss and see what he thinks. Are the odds good that he'll just let us go? No clue. It's unlikely.
But is it worth the gamble?
All I can say is that it's the only offer on the table. The option is to see how well you can go out there on your own with the road out and you not knowing another way off the mountain. Yeah. I need some time to think. Benson looked broken and seemed to stare off into space. Then down to the floor as he started to shuffle away. I watched as Roswell took his leave as well, heading into the kitchen deep in thought. The rest of us swapped looks, not knowing what to do next. What? Well, it's not as if we really know what to be thinking, right? How did this even happen? Were you always part of the mob? Is this the new thing? Pretty new. It was actually that gig we had which started this up. What? Hold on, what gig? The Philadelphia filmed here or whatever it was? Gee, thanks for paying attention to the start of my acting career, buddy. What do you mean by started up? Was it like a recruitment? Don't think it started that way, but the boss knows what he likes in a man. Careful how you phrase that. If you're a bit bigger built, Hoss, chances are you'd have been recruited too. Yeah, I'll pass, thanks. Was that filming even legitimate, or was it just for Dad to scope out new members for the family? Can't tell you. Can't or won't? Can't. I don't know. Took a shining to my buddy Jack, though, and brought him along. How did I miss this happening? How did I not know that Dad has brought you and Dak in on things? If I did, then maybe I could have just, maybe... Because he thinks you're a piece of shit, really. Dude, not cool. He asked. But still, Orlando's his son, right? Outside of money and violence, I don't think I've seen the boss crack a smile over anything else. Gets real mad when you bring up his son, though. Because he's the heir. Old Tennessee, still kicking, doesn't do him any favors either. By context, that'd be... Grandpa. The boss can't do much about who's next in line with the old man still about. But once he's gone, well... He wouldn't kill Grandpa, would he? I caught sight of Roswell entering the room again looking dejected. Even with the snacks under his arm, I turned out what the others were talking about to watch Roswell wander up to where we were all stationed and threw a bag of marshmallows on the table. Oh hey, thanks little man. Roswell gave him a brief scowl before sitting down in a chair himself, burying his face in his hands without touching the snacks he'd strewn about his part of the table. I found myself sitting down nearby, wondering why I felt so off. It was likely everything Dom had told us, the sense of entrapment that was lingering in the air. The worst of it was that Dom seemed completely fine with how rattled everyone still standing was. Hey Haas, you remember how the food was on set? He said nothing and just watched as Dom reached out for the bag of marshmallows, tearing it apart and shoveling a few into his mouth. So you really work for Dad? Sure do. But why? Why not? Pays alright, easy jobs every now and again. But it's against the law? And? What do you mean, and? Last I checked, you're a part of this family too, even if the boss doesn't like it. You're willing to admit that I exist, at least. But you're working for Memphis, just... Where do we go from there? What do you mean? If this deal doesn't go down well, then that can only mean one thing. You mean me returning with my buddy Jack and shooting up the place? I withdrew into myself a little as Orlando and Haas looked at one another mortified. No one said anything and the silence went on long enough that Dom assumed he was correct. If it comes to it, I have no problems putting a bullet through that pretty face of yours, Haas. That's just what's in the job description. Hey. Dom, stay the fuck away from Haas the baby girl. He shrugged lazily, standing up. If I wanted to do it now, I could. I just don't want to. So, what happens now? We can't let him leave after that, can we? Knowing he'll just be back to try shooting us. You think you can stop me leaving? We outnumber you! And what's going to happen when I don't touch base with the boss? Dom turned to me, his toothy smile not fading a bit. I reckon a certain friend of mine might come looking for his friend. I could feel my skin crawl under my fur, barely watching as Dom made his way from where he was sitting to stand behind me. His heavy hands dropped on my shoulders and he leaned in, speaking quietly. Jack's been waiting to see you again. Almost brought him along, but felt to be better to hold off so we didn't have any accidents. I was quaking, looking to Thanatos for any indication as to what we should be doing. Said he seemed intent on just lounging back on one of the oversized marshmallows as if it were a beanbag. So we're just gonna let him walk? We don't have a choice, do we? Why so angry? Wow, my laptop's angry. Like, you can hear it, right? Now, let me adjust my microphone so it's out of the way of the laptop. There we go. Yay! Why so angry? I went out of my way to offer you guys an alternative. Oh, yeah, that was it. It's because of an Adobe update. It was because of an Adobe update. On my way to offer you guys an alternative. Yeah, some alternative. Something felt very wrong about what was happening. Thanatos' smile seemed to hint at it too. Did that mean I had to step in here or just let things play out? Anyway, no point in sticking around here. Probably about time I headed back. He didn't bother waiting for us to say anything to him, instead just turning to leave. Is this really okay? Do we have no other option? We have to run, don't we? Make our escape somehow? And how do you imagine we do that, genius? Tyson was right. Even if we attempted to climb our way off the mountain with what remained of the rope, not all of us could make that. It wasn't an option if we all wanted to escape. Yeah, my laptop was screaming. I noticed Thanatos making a go for my arm and stood as he climbed up my sleeve. He gestured with his head to the foyer and I went to go have a look. I could see Dom still standing outside, seemingly taking the time to stretch just beyond the threshold of the back door. Wait. He turned to look at me, and I looked to Thanatos for guidance. Not that he seemed to be paying me any mind. Instead, looking right at the bear opposite us. You're leaving already? No point in sticking around here, is there? He dropped a lot on us suddenly. Why are you offering us a deal, really? Why do any of this? Thought I was pretty clear with that. I just want an easier job. And going through the effort of making a deal with us, rather than just showing up with guns is easier, or expecting me to come out and say that I don't want to kill anyone, that I'm in some unfortunate position and I'm taking pity on you lot for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. He cocked a smile and I took a step back. I like my job. It gets messy sometimes and I don't have to get messy, but I still get paid all the better. Not that I mind messy, mind you. You must be crazy. I don't understand. Trust me, I know crazy and Jack has me beat.
It's true. Jack is a lot more predictable than you are.
The rat talks. He's special.
You're going to go back to Memphis now, right?
The rat is actually talking. How's the rat talking? He's special? I don't know how else to explain it.
I want to know what you're planning on telling him about your visit.
You want to tell him exactly what happened? I offered a deal. You need to think about it.
Not good enough.
Why is that not good enough?
Memphis isn't going to take that. He'll get bored and show up tomorrow anyway.
Probably. Which is why we're not thinking about it. Benson? We're going to take your deal, but we need some days to be ready for what will happen. How many?
2.
Stay out of this. Why 2 days?
Trust me, we need 2.
And what's going to happen in 2? Y'all clearing out of what?
In 2 days, you'll take one of us as collateral, just in case something goes wrong. Memphis has someone to question.
I didn't like how Thanatos was now just deciding that one of us was going to be a sacrifice. Or at the very least, that's what it sounded like. Yeah, alright, I think I can make that work. But!
No, this is how it must be.
Guess I'll be seeing you in 2 days then. Then he just left, turning around and wandering away into the trees and out of sight. For a few moments I just stood there, staring at the spot he disappeared before finding myself lightheaded and fell to my knees.
Oi! Watch it!
Did that really just happen? We have 2 days. Only 2.
All things considered, that could have gone worse.
How much worse?
A few casualties. I wasn't kidding when I said he was variable. I've had this exact conversation a few times, and sometimes he's killed a couple of you to make a point.
What happens now?
You have 2 days to figure that out.
I could hear the sigh Benson made and knew exactly who he was directing it to. Do you know what we should do, Thanatos?
No. Legitimately, things are still up in the air. I will need to consider my next move carefully, otherwise this go-round is a waste.
2 days. I looked up to Benson and he looked so exhausted. He was wobbling. Maybe he was ill. Before I could think on it further, he collapsed to a knee. Benson? Dave, He faded fast, breathing ragged before he passed out. Was it lack of sleep? Had he just been holding things together for the sake of Dom's visit?
Well, that's unfortunate.
What do we do?
He needs rest for the most part, but the lack of sleep has done its job.
Wait, how much sleep has he had? How much have you stopped him having?
He hasn't had a full night's sleep in a while between keeping watch plus my own little games.
But why would you do that? Why would you What could you possibly get by getting Benson out of the way?
Now that he's at his limit, and we've spoken with Dom, what do you think is going to happen?
I don't know!
Dave, someone's going to be taken in 2 days. Who do you think is going to go?
If I had to guess, Roswell?
Wrong.
Then who?
With Benson incapacitated, he's a lot more of a prime offering. More likely to fight back against Memphis, too.
Wouldn't that mean he's better with us, well-rested, and, not as a hostage?
I would consider asking if you'd willingly sacrifice any of your friends in favor of saving the life of an otter you barely know.
But we promised Roswell.
I have other plans for Roswell, but he's not going to be much better off.
None of us are going to be after today, now with Benson out.
This was the price to maximize the time you could have to prepare your escape.
But like this? You started this plan how long ago just for this moment?
Are you going to be ungrateful?
He hopped down off my shoulder and wandered close to Benson.
He sure is out like a light. Maybe he'll be a little less grumpy after he wakes up.
Then he began to pat Benson down as if looking for something. What are you looking for?
This!
Reached into one of Benson's pockets and pulled out a key. What's it got? Go to.
A room that keeps Benson locked up, and now...
Watched as he flashed me another quick smile before biting down hard on the key, and I heard it crack. Thanatos, wait! He bent down hard, and for a moment I saw him shudder, but then the key broke into shards of metal. Now completely unrecognizable as a key. What have you done?
Limiting the options for variants. In no iteration thus far where you have been allowed a full armory does it go well.
All I could do was stare at the pieces of metal as I crawled closer. Then, struggling to get up, hooked Benson's arm over my shoulder to try and get him back inside. I hope for your sake you're right, Thanatos. Stumbling through the back door, I headed on into one of the side rooms and awkwardly placed Benson on something more comfortable. Thanatos? But he wasn't there. He disappeared at some point, and I thought back to what he'd just done. Was a key to Benson's room really all that vital? Had he known it was there all along? Are you alright? I don't know, but Benson's out like a light. What happened? Dom said we have 2 days before he'll be back. Then after he left, Benson just, passed out. Hasn't been sleeping enough. But he's sleeping now, right? Sal came over and checked on Benson, nodding slowly to himself. He's out cold, but he's breathing soap. That's something. But 2 days? What are we meant to do with 2 days? I really don't know. No one else seems to know, if that's of any comfort. Worst case scenario, we at least have a bunch of guns somewhere, right? Not that we have access to them anymore. What do you mean? Thanatos broke the key to where the guns are, or Benson's room, or... All he did was call it an armory, but what else could he have meant? I didn't think we'd need to actually use a sword upstairs. But a sword is not going to be enough, is it? In 2 days, Thanatos' plan is to give Benson over to Dom so we can escape. Beyond that, I don't know. 2 days. 2 days until things go bad again. Do you know for certain it's 2 days? According to Thanatos, yeah. We should leave Benson to rest and go talk with the others. We all need to be on the same page. We filed into the foyer where everyone was lingering around. Everyone was still dazed, it seemed like. Not that I could blame them. I'm so sorry, everyone. I never thought that... You didn't send them, did you? Of course not! Dan, stop. This isn't your fault. Guys, Dom just left. Kinda. Yeah, we watched him leave. That's not all. Thanatos gave us a couple more days before he'll be back. Until Dad arrives? No, Dom will be back. After that, I don't know. So, when you say a couple of days, do we really have 2? Yeah, 2 days until whatever happens next. Where's Benson now? Asleep. He passed out soon after Dom left from exhaustion. He's resting in his side room for the time being. You didn't put him in a bed? His own was out of the question, given up. Well, Thanatos broke the key to his room. Now, why'd he go and do that? He didn't like the idea of us having access to guns. What? Wait, we can't get in without that key? That's the impression I got from Thanatos, at least. Then what the fuck are we meant to do about weapons? That sword upstairs isn't even sharp, it's worthless! Five the knife, then the kit, then do we have nothing?
Weapons are only one problem, food is the other.
How bad is the food situation anyway?
For the short term, we have enough. Not enough for 3 square meals given the amount of people we have. We've hardly been doing that anyway.
I noticed you said short term.
Sadly, yes. After we ran the numbers, we can safely have food at our normal rate of consumption for another week or so. Longer if we start rationing immediately.
And after that?
We have foraging as an option, assuming we're able.
I don't think it'll come to that. Probably anyway. After all, 2 days until we might be escaping anyway. That's assuming everything goes well. And assuming we don't get duped. Dom isn't so bad or wasn't all that bad. Well, it's hard to say exactly how he is, but compared to Jack, he's a saint. And then there's Memphis. Without having met Dak, it's hard to know how he compares to Dad, but Dad's horrible. That I can agree with. How bad are we talking?
Considering Jack chased you through the forest and waited until you were almost back before making his move, we have a potential baseline.
And here's thinking that he was originally going to be arriving tomorrow. Speaking of, what's the plan? Are we staying or leaving? What do you mean? Well, they're the mob, right? If they show up tomorrow with guns, what are we doing?
We are assuming they won't keep their word.
Or Thanatos is lying. You'd rather take that chance? I sure as hell don't want to risk it. I looked across to Roswell and he was scratching his chin as if weighing things up.
No, you're right. It's not worth the risk. We should escape.
Really?
I don't mean now, but I believe escaping when the opportunity arises is the best course of action.
The fuck do you mean when the opportunity arises? We leave now! Ty, we could have fucking left days ago and avoided all this. We just up and left from the main road and gotten help, but we didn't. I watched Ty work himself up, knowing why we couldn't have just left. So we go now, right? Go get help and we're good.
I'm sorry, but that's not an option.
And why the fuck not?
For starters, we'd be condemning Benson to the mercy of whatever happens while he's unconscious. If they show up tomorrow in a few hours, the worst case scenario, he's left defenseless and it'd be our fault he dies.
Tyson huffed but stayed quiet while Roswell continued.
From there, we have to consider who can cross the hole in the road. Chances are I'd be left behind. There's every chance Orlando and Dave would be too.
Mentioning me seemed to be the trick to topple Tyson and he backed down. I could see he was frustrated, but I knew he didn't want to risk leaving me behind. Alright. I'm gonna stop for a bit. But you still think we should escape?
I do.
How are we going to manage that then?
Remember, Dom said that there's another way off the mountain. If they're keen on leaving after they have what they want, chances are that way off should be functional.
But that's assuming we know where it is, which we don't. The moment the words left my mouth, I furrowed my brow. Was this what Thanatos was getting at? Unless that's what Thanatos was getting at, trading someone off as collateral. I'm sorry, what? When we were outside before Dom left, Thanatos said that in 2 days he can come back and take someone as collateral.
Were any names given?
No, just that there's collateral.
I volunteer.
Thanatos said that you can't, or that he's already got someone in mind to offer up.
Then who?
I can't say I'm very keen on believing anything the rat is saying if he's already bartering with our lives. The implication was that it'd be Benson.
Benson? But why him? Isn't he better used, I don't know, keeping everyone else alive?
I don't know, but with him being unconscious and more than likely to fight Memphis, maybe. That's the opening he's expecting to give us. With him currently out like a light, there really isn't anything we can do to run it by him. Roswell?
What?
Thanatos said that he still has something in mind for you, and it didn't sound good.
Well, that's reassuring.
He's got to be lying, right? Trying to scare us? Long past the time for trying to scare us when we have the mob shaking us down. Tyson's comments got a few murmurs, but nothing committed as far as a response. So what was it, 2 days until we have to go through this again? If the rat can be believed.
I don't think there's a reason to doubt him. He's very much been playing some sort of game. To that end, trying to jeopardize our lives is counterproductive.
So, 2 days.
2 days.
Roswell shook his head.
2 days until Benson gets offered to Memphis and we make our move to escape. 2 days to figure out where their path off the mountain is and take it, getting clear off the mountain.
But what about Benson? Oh. Hiya. Okay. Hang on. We start games night on, like, Saturdays if no updates for Avian comes out. How about it? Any community games we can run on Theta's laptop? Maybe. That is a solid maybe. We'll have to talk about it in the Discord. What about Benson?
We can't do anything while he's unconscious, but if we have to offer someone up, and it can't be me.
The statement hung in the air, and I could see the varying levels of discomfort left. I'm going to go check on him. And did anyone want to come with? I wandered back to where I'd left him, and noticed Sal and Haas following behind. When we got to the room, Benson was right where we left him, with the addition of someone else. Thanatos? What are you doing?
Checking on the otter. What are you three doing?
The same. Did you really cut a deal with Dom to hand over Benson?
So what if I did?
And you're planning on something else for Roswell?
Now, Dave, I didn't think you'd go telling them so soon.
I don't know what we should be doing now.
I got you 2 days. Do whatever you like.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
What is your expected endgame? With Benson out of the picture and your plan, what happens to us?
For you to escape, obviously.
May I ask why?
You think I want you lot dead?
You did try killing Tyson.
That's different.
How exactly is that different? You're doing it again with Benson, aren't you?
Not exactly the same thing, is it?
You were driving Tyson mad over a couple of days, and been doing the same to Benson for almost a week now? That doesn't sound like someone that wants us alive, that's for sure.
Things change.
What things?
You expecting some long-winded monologue about what I'm up to and how that furthers whatever plan it is I have going on?
That would be lovely, actually. Lay it on us.
I wasn't being serious!
Maybe you should be. Did you want us to trust you or not?
Like that matters to me.
Well, it's hard to really know how much of this is all something that you've been through before and you're just going through the motions again. But if we just stop playing, then what?
What do you mean?
Dave, you're not suggesting we just stop doing anything and await our demise, do you? You couldn't possibly be serious. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not, but if we just stop doing anything, then Thanatos is forced to act instead, right? I don't think that's a smart idea. Neither, but Thanatos hasn't stopped staring at you since you suggested it, Dave. I looked back to Thanatos, and he was just staring as Haas said. What?
That's the game you're willing to play?
You're not giving us much in the way of options, threatening Benson, hinting at something bad for Roswell. Now 2 days to do something before who knows what happens next. I assume Thanatos knows what happens next. Well, do you?
Maybe.
That's a yes.
Oi! You don't know what I do and don't know. For all you know, I'm going through this the first time myself.
Except when you said that we needed to, and that's how it needed to be. And also explain that people could have died.
Fine, you got me. I know how this is going to go down.
And?
Last time it didn't go great, so I'm in the middle of tweaking things here and there.
May I ask how?
Oh, brother, if you must know, I was planning on drugging Benson.
What? What could that possibly accomplish?
The less Benson is able to go commit a murder, the better.
So you're going to keep him unconscious for longer. We're not going to have another thing with someone else sleepwalking, are we?
No, Benson doesn't sleepwalk even with mismatched medication for his species.
Oh, well, that's good, I suppose. What happens if you don't give him the sedation?
Then he shoots the person that shows up in a couple days in an attempt to buy him more time.
I'm guessing that doesn't go well.
Well, I would be doing it if it did now, would I?
To be honest, I don't know why you do half the things you do. Have you tried talking to Benson about being trigger happy rather than just jabbing him with some sedatives? Thanatos turned to me looking thoughtful.
Tell you what, why don't I let you decide, Dave?
Me? Well, obviously I don't want anyone to be injected with anything. That sounds awful. It didn't just sound awful with my hand going to my neck. I knew all too well what it was like firsthand.
Fine. No sedation this time, but you'll leave the talk with him when he comes to.
Which is in how long?
He's going to be out for the rest of the day.
Well, I guess it's fine to let him sleep. He clearly needs it. What should we do about a bed, though?
He'll be fine here. You can decide what to do with him once he wakes up.
I don't feel right just leaving him here.
Then take him somewhere. Either way, I have to chat with Dave.
Hoss, do you mind giving me a hand moving Benson? No, but is it fine? We're just going to leave Dave with the rat. It's fine, I'm used to it. Not exactly where we're getting at, but we'll check in later. When we left the side room, Estelle carefully carried Benson out. The two of them headed upstairs, presumably to find a bed while Thanatos guided me towards the basement. I had an idea as to why he'd bring me downstairs, and it became clear the further he led me forward. The basement was cold, and we stopped in the middle of the room with the lights off. So,
I've been thinking a bit.
About
Something you said this morning, about the thing you remembered.
I thought you said it was a dream.
That's the thing, isn't it? It has to be.
So,
Let me ask you a question. You been feeling alright after I put you under last time?
last time, when exactly was the last time? He went to reply but stopped short. Thinking about it.
Maybe it didn't happen this time around. The thing in the lab is what I was talking about.
If it helps, I feel fine as far as I can be.
No headaches or seeing things that aren't there?
Not that I know of.
And you're sure?
Thanatos climbed down from my shoulder and wandered over to his room, and I followed behind. Why are we in here?
I went to check something.
I watched as he wandered over to the input panel, looking up to it. His attention went to the door next. The whole time he stayed quiet. What are you checking?
I've been left wondering how different dreams and memories are from one another once again.
Once again?
We've had this conversation before. Let me catch you back up. When I look through my memories, it's like seeing everything on a single line. A lot of big gaps from where I'm offline.
Okay, are the gaps always the same, or...
No, always start the same, but things have been wildly different after I've made it to know I remember. I remember my master. I remember watching him die. I remember what he asked of me and when he gave me my name. I remember how I was back then compared to how I am now.
He turned to face me, shaking his head.
But there are gaps, noticeable gaps where there shouldn't be. But there are other times where the pattern breaks and I awaken somewhere else long after the vacation has ended.
I don't think I get it.
When the pattern breaks, how do I know I'm not looking at a memory but instead a dream?
Do you sleep your robot, so I'd assume you need to recharge at some point.
It's not the same as sleeping, but it may as well be. And so I'm forced to once again consider... I'm forced to once again consider what these things are. Are they dreams or memories?
Well, if they're memories, they'd be traumatic, right? That's what you said this morning.
Oh, wait, I'm serious.
So am I. Do the same rules apply to you or not?
Of course they don't. I'm the vault itself, not someone coded into it.
I gestured at him, confused. So how do you not know if something's a dream? You just seem to know everything, so why is this tripping you up? Besides, if we've already had this conversation before, why are you wasting my time with it now?
It's not a waste. I'm legitimately confused.
You're a robot.
Whose memories seem to show signs of tampering, not this time, but in previous loops.
Well, don't look at me. I don't know how that could happen.
There's one thing that it could be, but the only one that would know is my master.
And that is...
If he asked me to delete parts of my memory for him.
And you just do that?
Of course. From the looks of things, he's only wanted small sections removed, but I don't know why.
Then ask him.
It's not that easy. Talking with him lately has been difficult. With you a lot all around, finding the time to slip away and have a bit of a chat is hard.
I'm guessing because you don't want us following.
Pretty much.
I sighed. My head was hurting, but not from anything he'd done to me. I was just stressed from things earlier and confused about what he was getting at. That's what I told myself anyway.
Which leads us back to this check I want to do.
Which is...
Get comfortable.
I couldn't get the words out of my mouth before a sound assaulted my ears, high enough pitch that I felt myself black out. I felt myself lose consciousness long before I hit the floor, and internally I wondered how hard I'd land on the floor. It was strange being conscious while being unconscious, or being able to actively think things while surrounded by an endless void. When I came to, I was in the woods. Everything was hurting, but I picked myself up and started walking. No one was around, just me and my heavy breathing. It was dark, cold, and I had the feeling something was very wrong. It took me longer than it should have to realize I was bleeding. Blood was seeping from a wound on my body. A blood-covered hand came up to sit in front of my face. A grim smile forming soon after. Something told me I knew everything about what had just happened, why I was injured, but I couldn't open my mouth to ask. Stumbling into the makeshift campsite, I collapsed again. Listening out into the dark, my blood ran cold when I heard the sing-song voice of someone I hoped I didn't have to face.
Dave! Where did you go?
Soon after was manic cackling, echoing through the trees.
I know you're out there!
As much as my injuries would allow, I scrambled forward to move on from the river. Something was pushing me towards the house. Orlando! I coughed, blood splattering against the tree I was leaning against when I turned my head. Far off into the distance, I could make out lights. It had to be the mansion. Further off into the distance, I could hear Jack laughing. He seemed to be moving away from me rather than pursuing me, and I sighed. Though doing so sent a jolt of pain up through my chest as I continued. My pace slowed, my vision blurred. I could see someone approaching me in the dark. It was hard to make out who exactly it was. Maybe I'd given up, or maybe I'd already known, but with how deep the smell of blood was in my nose, I couldn't tell. There you are! My eyes dipped down to the gun in his hand. Dean? I coughed again. He stepped closer. Then everything went black again. When I next opened my eyes, I was laying on my bed. My face hurt. I could smell blood on my face, but I seemed to have control over my body this time. I groaned and sat up, rubbing my face. All that seemed to do was smear the blood I could feel deeper into my fur. Orlando wandered into the room soon just then, humming to himself and stopping short the moment our eyes made contact. You're awake! I'd never seen him move so fast, all while precariously balancing a bowl of something towards me still on the bed. He set the bowl aside, cupping my head in his hands as he looked me over. You had me worried! I was fine. Trevor, you're unconscious on the floor in front of the vault. In what world is that fine? How did you find me? The rat. He came looking. For you? For Dean, actually, but I quizzed him on where you disappeared to and he seemed to settle. I'm surprised that you didn't try putting him outside again. I had different priorities, namely making sure you were alright. I was fine, mostly. Dave, you've been unconscious the better part of the day. I was worried. Legitimately worried something had happened after Dom had left. It was just Thanatos being, well, him. Well, you missed dinner. Here. He retrieved the bowl he'd set aside and offered it to me. Scrambled eggs. Looked like there was cheese in it, too. For me? Don't go telling the others. He looked me over, playing with his hands. You could also use a shower. Would have cleaned you while you slept, but, well, is it bad? Given how I found you, I wouldn't be surprised if you hit your head or just landed on your nose. Are you Thor? I don't think so. I'm just mostly dazed, maybe? Are you Thor, that's all? Well, in 2 days, we're going to have to go through this again, potentially. And when that happens, who knows? And that's if it's not some lie, too. If they throw up tomorrow, that's the worst-case scenario. We're living in the worst-case scenario, Orlando. We don't have a way off the mountain, not all of us, anyway. He nodded slowly, scratching his neck. I guess you're right. I watched as he thought it over. Already I could see him weighing up the options of the potential solution to this problem. Don't go doing anything dangerous, not without talking it out with the rest of us. I won't, but we just don't have good options at all, do we? Shaking my head, I started to eat the eggs Orlando had made for me. Slow at first, but the pace picking up quickly until there was nothing left. Well, at least it's out of your appetite. He took the bowl from me and shook his head, giving me a fond smile. You'd feel better after a shower. Go on, I'll be here when you get back. Sure enough, I got into the shower and started to scrub my fur, hearing him leave the room and come back fairly quickly. When I got out and stepped back into the room, it was warm. Orlando reclined back on the bed, in just his underwear with the lights off. But as before, his body was softly glowing as if he were my personal nightlight. Crawling in next to him, I found myself swaddled in his warmth, and soon after drifting off to his quiet whispering of how much he loved me. I am so sorry to do this, Axel. I am so sorry to do this, Axel, but we're leaving off here tonight. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I cannot wait for the Heroes Advent update. I cannot wait for any new updates, but this game is just amazing. Yeah. Anyways, I'll be considering some community games we could play on Saturdays. And anyways, stay safe, have a good night, and I will see you all tomorrow.